Hey crafty friends, it's Chelsea, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to use gesso to soften busy pattern paper. I also wanted to share with you this gorgeous glossy UV coated cardstock from Close to My Heart. It's a special part of the March Cardstock Carnival and it's only available until this Thursday. So I will list the link down in the description box for you if you want to check it out. I also dug deep into my stash for this very old Uptown Fundamentals pattern paper. I liked it because it's neutral, but it has a very busy pattern. I'm also going to be using the Liquitex Basics Gesso. Since I'm working with gesso, I'm going to put down my all-purpose mat. That way it'll make it easy to clean up if I spill anything. I'm going to borrow this genius idea that I saw from my friend Miss Carrie's Creations here on YouTube. She used a not too sticky Cricut mat to hold down a watercolor panel. And I thought it would work great for this thinner patterned paper. I'm hoping it'll keep it from buckling too much. I'm not going to be able to tape down my edges on this because I want to be able to take the gesso right to the edge. There's a few ways you can apply this. You could use like an old credit card or hotel key card like I have here and scrape it on. My preferred way is actually just to use a dry paintbrush and just dry brush it on. You could also use a palette knife if you want. You might get a little bit thicker application with that and a little bit more texture. I like how the brush can kind of fade out as you get to the end. You can get these nice little thin brush strokes. The gesso is quite transparent, so I did end up doing 2 coats. I did the first coat and then I let it dry and then I added a second coat over top. This gesso has kind of a gritty texture to it. And essentially, it's supposed to be like a primer. That's really not the way I'm using it on today's project. I'm mostly just using it because I like the transparent matte finish. Now, as my paper was starting to dry, I was getting a little bit of buckling and a little bit of air pockets under there. So I just lifted up the edge and used my little scraper to smooth out the bubbles. After my second coat of gesso and allowing that to dry, I'm super happy with how this came out. There's hardly any warping or buckling. I'm especially impressed with this because the paper is quite thin. It's not the same thickness as regular cardstock, and it still turned out pretty smooth. Now on to the next step for my background. I cut out this overlay from the Everyday Moments Close to My Heart Cricut collection, and I had thought about using it like this, just a whole piece on the background. I decided that that was going to cover up too much of my beautiful pattern paper. So instead, I'm using it like a little template to help me line up all the diamonds that I cut out of that glossy cardstock. I'm working on top of my Versamat so that I can line up my page and also stick the washi tape to it to hold this overlay in place. I wanted to kind of do a rainbow, so that's why this glossy cardstock worked perfectly for this. Nice, bright rainbow colors. And now I'm going to start gluing them into place, just pushing them through the overlay so that they're all nice and lined up. I'm using liquid glue for a couple of reasons. First off, this is going over top of gesso, so it has a little bit of a gritty texture to it, and I thought regular tape runner probably wouldn't stick to it very well. I'm also planning to sew over top of this, and you definitely do not want to be putting your needle of your sewing machine through tape runner. That is just not going to work out so well. If you're interested in learning more about how I sew on my pages and tips and tricks and things like that, I taught a class this month in the Creative Design Team membership group, and registration is still open for that this week. It closes on March 31st, which is Thursday. So I will leave a link down in the description box for you. We focus a lot on different techniques and ways that you can apply that to your projects. So you can see how I'm basically using this overlay like a puzzle and just fitting all the little pieces into it makes it super easy and definitely way easier than just freehanding these, trying to get them all perfectly spaced out. In case you are wondering why I only applied gesso to part of the page and not just the whole thing, this is why. I wanted to have a more muted paper behind this design, but I still wanted the boldness of that original pattern to be on the section of the page where there's nothing. So over there, I'm just going to have a few embellishments, and my photos are going to kind of overlap the diamond pattern and the pattern paper. I'm going to skip the last couple rows of me applying these diamonds because I think you guys get the point. Once I got them all stuck down, then I'm just going to carefully peel up that overlay. I had to kind of push some of them through the opening as I was peeling, so I just went slow and adjusted as I went. I love these bright saturated colors and the nice rainbow they make together. In case you're wondering the shades, at the top we start with raspberry, then flamingo, nectarine, lemonade, green apple, clover, lagoon, bluebird, and grape. Once I got that overlay off, I decided I didn't like how it looked on the rows that just had 2 diamonds. I wanted to finish that off. So I'm going to glue on 1 more diamond on each row and then just trim off the excess. Now here is what it looks like after I've trimmed off that excess, and I also sewed my lines of stitching. The contrast of that coated cardstock against the matte gesso and then the texture from the stitching are making me super happy. Now I'm bringing in my photos. I did matte them on the same UV coated cardstock, and I just chose different colors that I had used in my rainbow. I did use score tape on my photos when I stuck them to those glossy photo mats. You could use red line tape. You just want something that's really sticky and will actually adhere to the slick surface. My title and a few of the pieces I'm using today to embellish are from an old compliment set called Snapshot, and I love that they were neutral. They're craft colored with foiling on top. When I went to go stick my photo mats to the page, I thought I would use my normal ATG tape runner, and then I changed my mind because these are sticking on top of the gesso, on top of the diamonds, which are also the glossy paper. And I thought, you know what, let's be safe and just use more score tape. I'm going to spare you all the footage of me messing around with these photos and trying to stick them down at the perfect angle. The title I stuck down with foam dots, and I'm just filling in this little gap that I had with some of the foiled arrows that were in that embellishment pack. I decided I really wanted to keep the color confined to the photo mats and those diamonds in the background. So all my embellishments are going to be either wood or craft. I'm using a few different things from my stash. I have wood hearts left over from a card kit. I had the Hawthorn wood shapes, and those leaves are from the Happiness Lives Here wood shapes. These photos are from last summer. I decided to use them for a couple of different reasons. First off, I hadn't told this story yet. Second, I liked that they were just kind of neutral. There's not really any bright colors in them. My daughter's wearing, very neutral outfit, so I thought that would work out really good with my nice rainbow background, and they wouldn't be competing with each other. And this is kind of an everyday moment. It wasn't a big event or anything, but I still wanted to scrapbook it because it brings a smile to my face when I think back about it. So it was an evening on a really hot summer day, and I was watering the lawn. As you can see, it was looking a little sad and dry. So I was watering it, and she was super interested in the sprinkler. She'd never been through the sprinkler before or anything. So I just let her crawl towards it, and she had a blast, just giggling and throwing her hands up in the air and touching the water. And then once she decided she had enough, she was on a little mission and just crawled away from that sprinkler as fast as she could go. This is basically the story that I told in my journaling. I just typed it up and then cut it into strips. At this point, everything is stuck down, and I only used some pop dots on the heart and the title. The wood pieces have quite a bit of dimension all on their own, so I didn't want to pop them up any more than that. Now, I was trying to determine if I was done or not, if there was anything else that I wanted to add, and I decided that I wanted to make this a little bit messier, a little bit less perfect, since this was quite a wet and muddy kind of event. I thought I would use some black splatter to convey that. So I'm just using my black acrylic paint. It's golden paint, but it really doesn't matter. Use whatever paint you have. I'm mixing it down with a little bit of water, and then I'm going to mask off the areas that I don't want covered in splatter with a piece of printer paper, and then I'm just gonna go to town. I don't know about you guys, but it's super easy for me to get way too carried away with splatter, and I think I may have crossed that line here, but I just couldn't stop myself. I was having a good time. Now, I did do something off camera that I didn't show here. When it was all done, I noticed that a lot of my splatters were exactly the same size, and that bothered me a little bit. So I took a thinner paintbrush and I created a lot finer splatter, and then I took my larger round brush and just enlarged the circles on a few of them to create larger splatter. You're not going to see it in this shot here, but you'll see it in the still shots. I hope this gave you some ideas of how you could use gesso to soften busy pattern papers, and also some fun ideas to use on mixed media layouts. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next Monday with another video.